Hiya chaps. I realise it's been quite some time now since my Linguistics of Limmy show video, but I did think it was worth doing some follow-up to it. So this is just me talking into a microphone, giving some thoughts and some response to the response that the video got. I'm very glad with how it's done. I mean, more than anything, I'm glad that Limmy actually saw the video himself and watched it on his live stream. I never never saw that coming. I never thought that would happen. Before that, someone actually had asked, I wonder what Limmy would make of this video, and I suppose the question has been answered. I'm very glad he was able to see it, and I'm glad that he got some fun out of it. Also, the crowning achievement of my life is that Brian Limond has said my Glasgow accent is good. So, yeah. As for everyone else, I'm very glad for all of your comments and thankful for all of the love the video's got. I'm glad that it went down well. Let me know actually if you think similar linguistic analyses of media are a good idea. I have a couple of ideas, perhaps building on the little gabagool reference I made in the video, and actually perhaps looking at The Sopranos from a linguistic angle. I think there's some interesting discussion to be had there. I wonder if focusing on individual features of language, like I did in the Limmy video, is less productive than the more general look at it. I mean, one thing that I should also say is that I made a big mistake, somewhat embarrassingly, by saying that an or and all, as it would be said in my accent, doesn't mean just also, as many Scots insisted it did, quite rightly. But I said at the time that it meant something like "and everything else." I think that is one sense that it can be used, like in some places, but at least in the example I was talking about, and generally it means also, and I was familiar with that usage as well, but I think I'd seen someone somewhere who had some vague air of authority about them say that in that instance it meant what I purported it to mean. So, more fool me, I suppose. On top of the response to the content of the video, I'm also glad that people seemed to, on the whole, receive the spirit that it was made in. I'm glad that people did not feel, in general at least, that I was being condescending or anything like that. I mean, there were a couple of jabs here and there, but I think it was clear that I am not only a big fan of Limmy's show, but also of Scotland. I think it's great. Inevitably, if someone has the accent I have, then you will come across as condescending in one way or another. It's just a smug accent with smug associations, so I guess that was unavoidable to some degree, but I think I mostly bridged the gap, so yeah. I definitely could have and probably should have been clearer with some front-end explanations of some linguistic concepts, like be clearer in what I'm talking about rather than just going right in with a favourite phrase of Limmy from the video, the Glaswegian post-vocalic uvular rhotic sound. And yes, I came across extremely pretentiously by just using that in quite so casual a manner, but yeah. It was also great to hear Limmy repeat the word hurting about 30 times in the live stream. I do encourage everyone to go and watch that. It's archived on the Benny Harvey YouTube channel, which is rest in peace, miss you big man, gone but not forgotten. But yeah, it's up on his channel. There were so many features I could have talked about, and I was planning to, but the video ended up already being 15 minutes long, and it was taking a hell of a long time to make, and I wasn't sure if just piling on the analysis of specific linguistic features was really adding to the point. On top of that, one section which I actually did complete the editing of led to the video being blocked in the UK and Ireland for copyright reasons. Fans of Limmy's show might be familiar with the Wasiel Heng sketch, and a clip was from that, and I was talking about how interesting it is that the TH sound, the th, or dental fricative for you linguistics nerds out there, is elided to an H sound. I think that's very, very interesting indeed. I mean, it happens in Irish as a part of their lenition system, but it doesn't happen regularly in English, so that was one of the things I was going to talk about. I've not found much documentation about that actually, and it was one of the things which I was really not aware of at all happening in Scottish English. I should stress, like, I considered myself quite familiar with the Scottish accent before I ever came across Limmy's show, and even despite that, I felt myself very much thrown for six. Some people have disputed the degree to which it's hard to understand the show for an English person, but as someone who was already somewhat familiar with Scottish English generally, I did find it quite difficult in places. So who knows, maybe it was just my particular experience of that. But most people like people who speak English as a foreign language, no way they're going to understand it in my experience, like almost at all. But yeah, I think it's interesting how different people seem to have different levels of aptitude with understanding the show from the get-go. I wonder what contributes to that. Maybe proximity to Scotland, or I don't know. I think one area where I really struggled to express myself well was when I was on about why it's interesting. Why I think it's a worthwhile experience to investigate something at once kind of similar and also different linguistically, and why it's kind of fascinating. I think I egged it on a bit too much while I was talking about a comedy show. And this is something that Limmy said as well, like, it'd still be funny though if it wasn't for Glasgow. And of course that's right, but I think the show also inevitably has this sense of kind of identity about it, which I think adds a whole nother layer, personally, as someone experiencing it from, outside. So, yeah, I could definitely have done a better job at expressing that, but I think most people sort of got what I was on about. And I don't know if that's something that is spoken about enough when it comes to comedy, because while it's something that obviously is innately less serious than drama or any other genre of TV or any other media you're talking about, just because it's comedic, it's supposed to make you laugh, there is still this kind of sense by which comedy is really quite important to people, I think. Or I think your comedy, if as it were, like, how often are there massive disputes in comment sections about British or American comedy, which is better, and you're innately given to understanding your own native sense of humour as your own, which sounds like a tautology, but I think as much as different areas of the world have different dialects in their language, you have a different kind of patter, you could call it. You have a different overall sense of humour and sensibility about humour. And then if you're experiencing one of those from a different place, then, you get this sort of enriching experience. That's not to say that I think Limmy's show is really drastically different in its sensibility from British comedy. While it is very unique in its own right, I think the uniqueness of the comedy is actually something very distinct from the entire linguistic dimension of it. I didn't make that quite clear enough. I think it came across perhaps as though I just thought that this was an interesting specimen of a show because of the kooky way in which they speak. But no, I do watch it because it's funny. And it is bloody funny. And I also think it's funny in a very British way. Of course, it is Scottish comedy, but I think it comes from the same family of comedy as stuff made here in England, or also in Scotland, or all over the UK, all over the British Isles. I think it shares much more in common with other comedy from Britain than American humour, absolutely. Even down to, well, it's on the bloody BBC, for goodness sake, but even down to the kind of low budget aesthetic it has, I think it has that kind of ironic energy that you expect to find in comedy from this side of the pond. There's a couple of things I really neglected to bring up alongside Limmy in the video. I was thinking of talking also about the band Las Vegas, and how that also represents something really distinctly of a Glasgow dialect, and that adds to it, but it's bloody good music on its own. The lyrics are fantastic. The guy's voice is really just amazing. I think they're touring actually next year, which will be fantastic. But yeah, there were a couple of things which I really could have used in comparison perhaps, which would have made this clearer, but hey ho. On top of that, I don't know how I was quite able to neglect the obvious pun of Limguistics, but everyone else seems to have done it for me, so there you go. I realise I've been whittering on for damn near 10 minutes, so I will let you go. But yeah, I think this was definitely worth doing, and I'm very glad for the response that the video got. And that it wasn't something purely of a niche interest to myself, because while making it I did have one of those YouTubers crises thinking, is there any soul on the earth that could possibly wring any interest or satisfaction out of this video but myself? And it seems that there are at least a couple thousand of you, so that's cool. That's very cool indeed. And I'm grateful for the new subs, almost all of which are in thanks to Limmy himself for sharing the video, which I'm really grateful for and really just chuffed about. He's one of my favourite comedians, and it's just insane to me that he saw that video. Yeah. Once again, sorry this was so belated, but yeah, do be on the lookout for the next thing, whatever it is.